Welcome, everybody, to the Natural Born Hunter podcast brought to you by Mountain Ops. Mountain Ops is a supplement company that specializes in the needs of the hunter. If you need a little more protein in your diet, boom, hit up the Magnum. 3 different sources of protein in there, so it absorbs in your body at different points in time, making it last longer so you can get stronger. You can also check out their Yeti pre-workout, perfect for hitting max lifts, PRs, getting your head in the game, and getting after it. They also have Enduro for those of you who are a little more cardio-based in your workouts, looking to charge hard for long hours at a time. The podcast is also brought to you today by Alaskan Guide Creations, the originators and innovators when it comes to bino harnesses. They're the guys to do it first and do it better, frankly, than everybody else out there. If you're going to dump a bunch of money into getting fantastic, great, expensive binoculars, well, then you better, spend a little bit to protect those. They're super reasonably priced. They come in great camo patterns, and they're a fantastic product. They strap it to your chest, hold them down, fully encased in there, and protect them from all the elements. So check them out. Without further ado, let's fire this puppy. And welcome to this episode of the Natural Born Hunter podcast. And we are live with the man, the myth, the legend himself, Jim Shockey. How you doing tonight, Jim?
Well, I'm definitely not doing my man, the myth, the legend. Not able to live up to that. That's for darn sure. But,
no, don't believe that for 1 minute, Jim, because my wife never listens to this show, right? Never. And I made a post earlier saying, hey, we're going to be live with Jim Shockey later tonight. I get a text 2 minutes later, and it says, from my wife, you've got the man, the myth, the legend on?
Well, I apologize for not being on 15 minutes ago. There's technical difficulties, but I'm here now, and I'll try and live up to it. Might have to make up some stories to live up to that, though.
I think you'll do just fine.
I think we'll be okay. So, Jim, you are completing the trifecta of the Shockey family in the hunting world. Not that we want to leave out your lovely wife, but you are completing our pyramid here, and we're really happy to have you. We've had some excellent conversations with Eva and Branlin, and like I said, I'm excited to be able to chat with you for a few minutes tonight. So,
sure.
Welcome again.
Happy to be here.
Jim, I've been thinking of what question I would ask you first, right? And there's one that I've had in my head all day because I think it's one of the coolest things that I've seen happen, right? And it's, what's it like to have little children dressing up like you for Halloween?
Well, I mean, obviously it's an honor, and I mean, joking aside, I mean, it's kind of funny, but on the serious side, that it's a confirmation that we're reaching a younger generation with the hunting message, and that more and more parents are aware of the value of taking their children out into the outdoors, or if they can't get them out in the outdoors, at least letting them watch on television as we bring the outdoors into their household. So it's that to me is positive news about hunting for the future, but it's also a responsibility. I mean, these youngsters are going to be watching what we're doing on television, not just my show, but all the shows, and that's how they're hopefully going to be deciding how to live their lives as they go forward. So it's an important responsibility on the serious side that we never ever let any of those youngsters down. We always live up to the standards that we like to portray as hunters.
So that's a great point, Jim, and I've got a question for you that maybe is related to that in some ways, but when you're talking to, let's say, new hunters or someone who's wanting to get more educated as to how to be a good spokesperson for conservation and for hunting, is there any resources out there that you suggest or you can point people to say, hey, you want to learn. Knowledge is power. Education is king in this world that we're in. And what would you suggest to someone to say, hey, you want to learn, you want to be more educated, you want to be a good spokesperson, go here and learn from here?
That unfortunately is something that we're lacking in our hunting world. And in fact, I had several conversations with various people in the industry here over the last 3 weeks down in Vegas at SHOT Show and at the Grand Slam Overs Show and also at SCI. We do need to have, I don't know if you'd call it a school or an online class or something that's more modern than just in a book. I mean, there's lots of people who've waxed poetic about the value of hunting and hunting families and tradition and conservation, but they're hard reads for the most part, and it's not in point form. And our world today has to be in point form online, or we most people just don't even bother with it. So we are, we've never needed it in the past, but we do now. And with the social media and the way the world's going with information technology, gathered this information up and help people. So when they do want to talk, when someone says, "Why do you hunt?" you can answer it, and answer it in a way that doesn't make hunters look not knowledgeable of what they're doing. I mean, it's like saying, how do you love? I don't know. How do you, why do you love? I don't know. How do you answer that? And it's the same thing for hunting. Why do you hunt? Well, you can't. It's not a simple question like, what do you do when you come to a red light? It's a difficult thing. And yeah, we need some help. We need somebody to put it into a format that we all understand and can articulate.
I would say you're probably the most articulate, poignant representative of the hunting industry and as hunting as a sport itself. And listening to you on Joe Rogan's podcast, I think, really turned a lot of lights on to where people really weren't aware of hunting as a conservation effort or how hunters really felt about hunting before, because I know people now who have listened to that episode 2-3 times because of the way you talked about hunting in Africa and wolves and the different kinds of predators and everything. And I think people just don't know what they don't know. And if you can't easily consume it online now, chances are they'll never know.
Yeah. Well, that's exactly right. And I mean, thank goodness for Joe Rogan that to give us a venue to talk about hunting. That that's Joe reaching whatever number of millions of fans he has. Fantastic for him. We all owe him a pat on the back, but we need more vehicles to get that message out there. I mean, I'm mixing metaphors here, but we have no way to distribute the signal, the message, and only through television and podcasts like right now. I mean, there'll be people listening right now that are not hunters that tuned in for whatever reason, and what we say right now will influence how they feel about hunting. So, but this is not enough. We need 1,000 of these, 100,000 of these to get the message out there, to reach literally hundreds of millions of people around the world that are vacillating. They don't know. Some are opinionated. They swing towards anti-hunting. Some are opinionated. They swing towards hunting. But that vast middle percentage, 80%, that either hunters at one end hunt 10% and 10% hate hunting. So the middle percentage is who we have to reach, and that the more ways we can reach them, the better. And of course, to have the proper message to tell them when we do reach them that's also vital.
Yeah, it makes social media so much more important with the right people in the right place, because that being where most people go to right now for information, for, as a resource, really, having like you said, like Joe Rogan and like your daughter, she's a great spokesperson and doing a really good job of shedding, a light on the positive side of hunting. So, yeah, I agree. I mean, I don't want to spend the whole time talking about this topic, but it's a very important component in hunting and growth and in sharing our message. So I agree. I mean, we're trying to do our part. I know you do a great job doing your part, but there's always room for more.
Yep. Well, you guys, you're doing great. So I'm really proud and happy to be part of what you're doing today.
I think part of it too is hunting doesn't have its own voice.
Definitely.
We all have to use our own voices collectively to represent hunting, because it can't speak for itself.
Yeah. No, the animals can't speak for themselves. We are. I've likened it to a war on wildlife around the world, and it's a serious war. Like hunters or not like hunters, we are the messenger telling the world that, listen, the wildlife is in great peril in these places, and not, the save the seal, save the whale, save the panda bears. I mean, those people are everywhere. They jump on whatever the prettiest animal is, but who's saving the white-bearded wildebeest in Tanzania?
The ugly animals.
The ugly animals, exactly right. The giant forest hog. I don't see any of those people out there, support with their placards supporting any of that. I don't see photo safaris going to take pictures of that stuff. So, outside of the parks, who's looking after those animals? It's a war on wildlife around this world, and we're the messengers as hunters. So it's well, like you say, anybody that can get the message out there is doing a good service for wildlife. We are their voice. We are the voice of wildlife in all the places that are not parks.
I've got a question for you, Jim, on a separate topic. You're a man that travels all around the world, gets to experience so many things, and obviously you're very busy, and we appreciate your time tonight. But what's the project or a future project that you're most excited about right now, working on, that you can share with us?
I'm really excited about working with Ivan Carter on Carter's War. Brandlin is our son is producing it. I'm executive producer on it, but Ivan is an articulate guy that I think could cross over into mainstream television, or bring mainstream to the Outdoor Channel. Either way, I think he's a world-class talent on camera that I'm really excited to see where that all goes over the next 10 years. I'd be surprised if he's not the go-to guy by major networks whenever there's another Cecil shows up. I mean, Ivan is he's just a great talent, and love working with him. Want to see what happens. So that's one project, and that is to help hunting and hunters. Conservation wise, the wildlife obviously is what we want to benefit in the final analysis. But working with Ivan on Carter's War, really excited about that. I mean, I'm working on our own museum up here in Canada. That again, that's a lifetime work, and it's not, it's a wildlife and natural history museum, and cultural museum. So there's, artifacts I've been collecting all over the world for the last, 50 years. So it's, to be able to share all that with, the public, I'm looking forward to that. Now we're still a few years away from that actually happening, but that's okay. Nothing wrong with having a long-term goal, and I guess I'm looking forward to grandchildren. I mean, that's both Brandlin and Eva are now married, so what the heck? They've been married 6 months and 2 months. Where's the grandkids? So
that's what I'm saying, Jim. Who do you think will be first?
Oh man, that is a tough question. I don't think I'm even gonna answer that. There's a few questions that I won't answer, and that one I just can't answer because who knows? But from what I hear, it's the most incredible thing to have grandchildren. So looking forward to it. Whoever is first.
Is there one you're leaning towards who you'd want to be first? Like you think maybe they're just a hair more prepared than the other one?
I'm not sure what part of a question I can't answer you didn't understand. That I can't. Louise, my wife, is probably listening right now, and I just know she'd be saying, "Don't you dare try and answer that! Don't you dare answer." So, no, you know what? That's up to
That's a
the
loaded
kids.
question.
And up to fate, and they both, thank goodness you when you have children, you always hope that they marry someone or find their soulmates, like Louise and I did. We've been married 31 years, and you hope that your children find someone that they can love like we love each other, as an example for them. And I can tell you that both Louise and I absolutely approve of their choices. Ashley for Bramlin and Tim for Eva. They're solid, wonderful, beautiful, loving, caring, compassionate people. And we couldn't ask we couldn't have asked our children to pick anybody better. So we're thrilled about it. And grandchildren, if they come, great. If they don't, well, that's the way it is. But we're happy.
Jim, you may want to be careful how many nice things you say about Brandlin tonight, because I usually don't ask anyone, for question recommendations. But for this episode, I actually talked to Brandlin a little bit to say, hey, what do you think I should talk to your dad about?
Oh, that's interesting. Well, if you ask me any real hard questions, I'll get even with them. I'll send him to another podcast sometime with a bunch of loaded questions. But bring it on. Let's hear what he said.
You want him now? I was going to save him to the end to make sure this went well.
yeah, to make sure I don't hang up too early.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah, no, I'm sure Brand's he's a pretty insightful guy, so he'll have some. I'm sure he led you in the right direction for questions.
He is, and not to knock you, but he was actually the number one guest from the hunting industry on my list for a long time.
Wow, cool.
Yeah, so I was pretty stoked. Yeah, and you know what? He's turned out to be incredibly useful for this interview.
We'll see about that.
So do you want his questions now, or do you want me to save?
Let's hear him, Will. I want to hear it now.
All right, Jim. I'll start with the soft one first. Soft
okay.
question.
Okay.
Were you in, when he told me this, I didn't quite believe it, but did you used to be an antiques dealer in Vancouver?
Yes, correct.
How were you an antiques dealer in Vancouver?
I mean, I'll give you the Cole's Notes version, the quick version. I got out of university, thought I was going to be a real estate developer, and this was 1980, basically. 81, interest rates went up through the roof, and that ended any ambitions I ever had of being a real estate developer and being incredibly wealthy. So I basically had my dog, my little secondhand car, and my stereo, and $300 in my pocket. And my grandmother told me that don't spend it on food. You can't starve in our world today, or this part of the world. Buy something for $50 and sell it for $100. Go to garage sales. So that's what I started doing, and turned. We were the original pickers back in those days. That's what we called ourselves. We were pickers, and we'd knock on doors in Western Canada for, looking for antiques. Or, and they weren't even antiques. They were just old stuff. But I inadvertently bumped into a vernacular furniture called ethnocentric folk forms, basically. So Doukhobor, Hutterite, Mennonite, Ukrainian furniture from Western Canada that we would buy, or I would buy, and then bring it out to the West Coast, to Vancouver, and sell it. It had no value on the prairies, but once you brought it out to the West Coast and fancied it up a little bit by refinishing it and making it pretty, then it would sell for pretty good dollars. I mean, we had some fancy clientele. I mean, Goldie Hawn was a client. Who else? James Taylor, actually. I'm going back into Katie Lang was a customer. Mel Gibson. These people all bought from us in those days. So So we did well, and those, not money-wise, we did okay. But finally, Ralph Lauren walked in one day and essentially bought me out of all my country furniture, which allowed us to move to Vancouver Island, and I could get into another one of my true passions, which was outfitting, guiding, and hunting, writing for magazines, hunting magazines.
Man, Jim, you were one step away from being the guy on Antiques Roadshow.
You know what? My favorite show on television. That's you can ask Louise if we're clicking through the channels and there's Antiques Roadshow. That's it. Forget it. I don't care what else is on. Even Michael Waddell can be on there doing the Bone Collectors. No way. I'm watching Antiques Roadshow. So yeah, it's true. That's still a passion of mine is collecting, cultural, tribal art, but the authentic, not made for resale items.
What is it, do you think, about Antiques Roadshow that I've got sucked into that before? It's like there's two old ladies with blue hair on there, and they've got a pot that they've just found that they've been buried for 50 years, and now they're going to ask this guy how much it's worth. That'll just suck you in.
Yeah, you can't. I mean, that's the original reality shows. It's been going on forever. It's treasure hunting. Look at the spin-offs of that show, which didn't necessarily spin from that show, but certainly the ideas like the American Pickers, the Pawn Stars, Storage Wars, all these shows that are more contemporary in style were, I guarantee, were all based on the finding a treasure wherever it is, and it has more value than you thought. I mean, I'll guarantee all the people, the producers, watched Antique Roadshow at one time in their lives, and what you end up with are this, huge number of shows using the good parts of Antique Roadshow. But Antique Roadshow is still the godfather of them all. That's still, here's what you found. I have it in my attic. It's on my shelf. My grandmother gave it to me, whatever. Bought it at a garage sale, and what's it worth? Is it worth more than I paid, or is it not? Is it worth $100,000? I mean, or more.
Do you ever sit there like people do with Jeopardy trying to guess the answers, and you're like, I know how much that's worth, Louise. It's exactly $3,500 you watched.
Am I that easy to read? Because, yeah, that's exactly what I do. I do it every single time. I swear last night, or yesterday, night before, we were watching Antiques Roadshow, and I was guessing the prices, and I was bummed if I was out by more than $1,000 on some of it. But, I mean, my specialty isn't Staffordshire pottery or whatever it is, or China, so I'm guessing at those ones. But if it's in my wheelhouse, then I'll be pretty close to the prices.
It's fun to play along, though.
Yeah, it is. Sure it is. I mean, it makes you feel smart when you get it right, and when you're dumb and you're out by $1 million, you just find a happy place and just be thankful you didn't buy it for that.
That's when you start yelling at the TV. There's no way it's worth that amount.
Yeah, I don't quite get that animated when I'm watching Antiques Roadshow, but I do like it. I do like it. Antiques
Roadshow really brings out the passion in a man.
Yeah, I know. That's kind of pathetic, actually, when you think about it. But when you traveled as much as I have, and you come home and watch the Antiques Roadshow. But I mean, it is. Hopefully they're sending us residuals for how many people were motivating to watch their TV show. I doubt I'm going to get a plug for our Uncharted or Carter's War or Hunting Adventures from them. But anyway, they're welcome for the plug back.
You never know. They'll be looking at their ratings from February, and they'll be like, "Did you see this spike here? What do you think happened?"
Yeah, what happened? Where do we get that free advertising from?
So, what's the next question, Will?
Well, this one I did not believe. But since Brandlin said it, I'm going to ask it.
Okay.
Did you used to be an underwear model?
Well, let's see.
There was a wind-up on that answer.
Yeah, there's no. I mean, that's a pretty simple question that requires a yes or no. So I can't even hide from it. But okay, yes, but not a whole bunch. How about that?
Was this before or after you started outfitting?
This was before.
Okay.
I think you'd probably have to go back to about 83, 83 and before to find documented proof of my underwear modeling career. but you would find it if you looked hard enough. You'd definitely find proof. In fact, I probably have a photo album with pictures in it from back in those days. There was regular modeling, which I actually did some of, which paid well. That's why I did it. And then there was the underwear modeling, which paid scale and a half. So I made 50% more money when I was doing underwear. So and because I was a swimmer and a water polo player, I mean, wearing underwear didn't bug me at all. Although nowadays, looking back at those pictures, I probably should have been bugged. It was a lot of the tighty whities were what we were selling in those days.
Hey, I wouldn't have turned down that money.
No, it was pretty good money, and it was long prior to my having met Louise, so I just looked at it as free advertising, and I was getting paid for it.
There you go.
I can picture the scenario of how it started now. Ralph Lauren walks in, I'll take all this furniture and you.
It's funny, but he didn't say that. He just said he'll take the furniture. Although I got to say, I did do a full page ad, and it probably is out in the 1984 September Vogue magazine. So somewhere I got as big as Vogue magazine full page ad, and then never really got to the Ralph Lauren international side, market for modeling. I'd like to say I was too big. I'm talking about just like too tall. just to be clear on that, too tall.
You are a tall drink of water.
Yeah, I'll take that as a compliment.
I don't know.
So I'm gonna take this, and I'm gonna take a piece of what we just talked about there. And Jim, you mentioned you were an athlete in college, and probably some after college, or I mean, was that around the time you competed with the water polo?
Yeah. I actually went to university on scholarship for swimming. When I was 17, I went off to university and switched over on my second year of or my third year, so I guess sophomore year, or is that junior year, to play water polo. I had been playing a little bit and then decided to try for the national water polo team and made it. So I switched universities and played for the next 6 years for Canada on our national water polo team. And did the 1978 World Championships, World Aquatic Championships in Berlin, and the 1982 World Championships in Guayaquil, Ecuador. But 1980, the Olympics year, we boycotted. Jimmy Carter decided that was the best way to show the Russians what we thought of them. So, we boycotted from the Western world, and that Olympics in Moscow, we didn't get to attend. And then 1984 was in Los Angeles. Of course, the Soviet bloc countries boycotted, and I could have gone to that. I assume I could have. They asked me to centralize with the team, but I would have had to centralize in Eastern Canada, and I didn't want to do that. I got married in 1984 to Louisiana. I just started in a new life, so I never did get to the Olympics, is the bottom line. But certainly played at the international level all the way up until then, 1984.
So, being so heavily involved in athletics, how do you feel about the movement over the last few years, or just the rise of the the more bow hunting athlete or hunting athlete type movement, where so many more spokespeople like a Cam Hanes or like Jim Shockey and some of the other ones that are emphasizing fitness with hunting? How do you feel about that movement?
Oh, I think it's fantastic. To really enjoy being out in the wildlands, you want to be in as good a shape as you can be. Obviously, it's not for everybody, but but the it's nicer. It's more fun to climb a mountain when you're not carrying an extra 20, 30 pounds. Now you don't need to do that for every type of hunt. I mean, sitting in a whitetail stand, you don't need to be in great physical shape. But I think everybody would benefit from it, and not just. I think you'd enjoy it more. It's easier to climb the stand. It's easier to carry the stand. It's easier to carry the deer back out. You're more capable of shooting a bow and arrow better if you're in good shape. I mean, Cam Haines' message is very clear on that, and I think it's great. Anything that makes people healthier, I'm all for. I mean, it's kind of a do as I say, not as I do, because I don't do a lot of working out myself. I will during the convention season, like for the last month. I've religiously worked out every morning, not Cam Haines quality, but for me, an hour on the treadmill or an hour on the elliptical, and then 15 minutes of weights, and away I go. I don't really care what I look like. I care about being in good shape. So I'm not. I like to say I'm not trying to build big muscles. That's why I don't have any. But I do try and keep in good physical condition. It makes life so much more enjoyable, and not just for hunting, just life. We as hunters, we also are representing hunters. Every time we step out somewhere and we say we're a hunter, it's nice if we can walk the walk as well as just talk the talk about how good hunting is. The organic living, the locavore, the hunting for food for your family, and it's nice if when people look at us, and I know as facile as that is, they judge us. How do we look? How do we look? What do we look like? We're in shape. If we're really doing that locavore organic eating, well, we should kind of look like we can climb a mountain, go get that animal, and bring it back on our back. So it's not it's not for everyone, and it's tough to change bad habits, bad eating habits particularly. But I think it's great. Anybody that Cam Haines converts to caring about what they're sticking in their mouth and swallowing and eating is good. If it's means working out, you're not going to eat that Twinkie or whatever, then fantastic. So I'm all for it, and I try and stay in shape, by example, and I listen to what Cam Haines says. I follow him on Instagram. I want to see what he's doing. I don't want to do the 5-mile run every morning, and I don't want to do the heavy weights, but I'll sure as heck do what I can in my own way. And we all don't have, not all of us are going to look like Cam Haines. Let's face it. But we can sure live a healthier lifestyle, and I think that's the most important takeaway of this new movement.
I couldn't agree more. Phil and I don't know if you've ever heard of it, but we are involved in a competition series called Train to Hunt, which is what a Spartan race is?
What is it?
Have you ever heard of a Spartan race?
Like the obstacle type races?
No, I haven't heard that.
All right. Well, they're Train to Hunt is a 2-day event for bow hunters, and on the first day you shoot 20 targets of a 3D course, and they have special shot scenarios called the Hunter's 3D course, where some you'll have to hold for 30 seconds. Sometimes you'll have to hold back for a minute, to simulate the bull or, an elk, whatever, kind of catching you on your draw, and you have to wait before you get a shot opportunity. Some have you moving left or right, kneeling, shooting 2 shots in 10 seconds, things like that. Mm-hmm. And then you have the meat pack challenge, which it's different weights for different divisions, but you put a pack on your back and you grab your bow and you go about 1 to 2 miles with the weight in your pack. It could be anywhere from 60 to 100 pounds. And then on the second day, it is a obstacle course of sorts where you take your bow, 20 pounds in a pack, and you go about 1.5 to 2 miles ish on this course where every so often you will encounter a physical challenge you have to perform and a shot scenario. And there's 6 shots and 5 physical challenges on the course.
Wow, that sounds really interesting. I'd love to be a judge on it.
You're more than welcome. I'm hosting one in Pennsylvania. You're more than welcome to come out and judge. I'm trying to get Brandlin to compete in it. I was sending him the info for it today.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Let me know if you convince him, because it means if he does go, that he's taken time away from the edit suite, which we try to keep him locked in their editing. He's like Bubble Boy. We don't want anything to ever happen to him. He's too important. So
it doesn't look like he's getting much sunlight.
No, that's exactly right. We keep him in there like a vampire. But I mean, that sounds like a great challenge. And you know what? Anything that gets people outside, breathing fresh air, and away from their computers is a good thing. Other than letting Brandlin go do it, I like him in front of the computer. But no, it's a good thing, and it may not represent exactly what happens in the real world out there hunting, but it's as close as you're going to get to quantitatively deciding, who can do this and who can't. I mean, the real thing, of course, is a far more mental challenge than it is a physical challenge when you're out in those places. That's what I found in my experience anyway. Can you tough out 10 days in a row with sitting there in rain and sleet and wind and wet and cold and miserable and uncomfortable and no animals, so that you're there on the 11th day when the sun breaks and you have this incredible ethereal, world around you that you just, it invigorates you and inspires you. And at that point you could take on the world. I mean, there's no way to quantitatively decide who's the best at that. And, we're all capable of it if we're put in that position. That's the other wonderful thing. Every one of us is the product of millions of years of evolution. So we're all capable of that, that mental toughness, or we wouldn't be here. Our antecedents would have been dead, eaten by something, and we never would have had any kids. But it's a good thing. I mean, it's a good way to judge or to try and judge even yourself. Are you capable of walking with that 60 to 100 pounds that mile and doing those physical challenges? I think it's great. I mean, really, all sports are symbolic representations of what we have to do as hunters and what we've had to do in the past as hunters/warriors. I mean, we had to protect what our homeland was, our tribal lands, and we also had to provide for our family. So everything in any sport is based on that. Whether it's fighting against another tribe on a football field, that's the same thing. We just saw that the Super Bowl. Well, that's two tribes fighting against each other, and they represented a million fans on each side of that of their tribe. So and that the power, the finesse, whether you're kayaking, whether you're swimming, whether you're a mountaineer trying to get to the top of Everest, all of those skills are part of being the hunter for the tribe, to provide for the tribe and or protect the tribe. So that's what you're doing with those events that you're taking part of. And like I say, it's all good. Get people outside, get them breathing fresh air, and at least you're acknowledging that these are skills that are useful in hunting. I mean, they're all useful in hunting. Every single sporting skill out there is hand-eye coordination, golfing. That's all part of hunting. Shooting a bow and arrow is the closest thing to hitting a golf ball. You want to sink a 6-foot putt. That same person can shoot a bullseye at 20 yards. It's the same mental strength for each skill. So yeah, I think it's great. Like I say, I'd like to be a good judge. I wouldn't want to be in the competition because goodness knows I'd hate to come second.
We have masters and super masters, depending on your age bracket. levels too.
Do I look like somebody who wants to compete in a Masters or Super Masters bracket? I mean, you bring on the young kids. Let's go head to head, because that's how you can only ever really judge where you sit in the scheme of things.
I'm counting my time till I'm in Masters.
Yeah, well, I am too for golf, but actually I'm already there. But hunting, no. You know what? Hunting is something you can do until you're 90, and your physical ability, may deteriorate over time, or not may, it does, but your mental ability goes up, your experience goes up, and a lot of times in hunting, that counts as much as your ability to carry 200 pounds on your back for 10 miles, to be able to run 20 miles. Maybe I didn't have to. Maybe if I just went this way, I don't need to do that. So you actually get wiser as you get older. At least I'm sticking to that, and that's my story, and I want to believe it.
Yeah, it sounds about right. Because I'm really hoping I get better as I get older.
Yeah. Well, I can assure you get wiser about the use of energy. That part I can assure you of. Just, that's from experience.
So is there any one thing, Jim, that you can point out, or even a couple things that have led to you being more mentally strong or mentally tough in some of those situations like you mentioned before, having to grit out, sitting there for 10 days when you couldn't hunt because of maybe weather conditions? Is there something that you can point out that's helped you develop that mental toughness?
That honestly, anyone that likes extreme hunting is going to be tough to begin with. They're going to want to challenge themselves. You can do an easy hunt, or you can do a hard hunt, and most people choose the easy way because it's easy. But the people, and not just guys, women that choose the hard hunts want to challenge themselves. So they're already prepared for what it takes to go do a backpack sheep hunt in the Yukon. But I have to say that you as you get older, you get wiser about, and I referenced that, the use of energy. I remember the first time I went, and it was really the first time. It was a Dall sheep hunt. My guide was a fellow named Rod Collin from up in the Yukon. Hopefully someone who knows Rod will be listening to this and can pass this message on, that he was the toughest hunter that I'd ever hunted to, certainly up to that point, and definitely in the top 3, and there's no way you can judge him once they're as tough as he is. And I learned from him. I mean, he would, I saw him, the first morning, I was wearing the state-of-the-art hiking boots, and he was wearing a pair of big, thick wool socks and moccasin rubbers, like the rubbers that you put over top of your shoes when you don't want to get them wet back in the, 50s, 60s. And still natives today use them over their moccasins during the wet season. And that's all he wore. I mean, and he'd get up in the morning and he'd walk right over to the nearest creek and walk right in it, soak his feet. He said, I don't want to be pussyfooting around, cold water spots that we have to cross for the rest of the day. My feet are already wet. I mean, that's just tough. And I'd be trying to do everything to keep my feet nice and dry and cozy, and he was embracing the discomfort of cold feet. And after 7 days with him, I was ready to compromise on the size of the age of the animal I wanted to take. It was Dall sheep we were hunting. And he just, he looked at me and said, well, if you do that, you're going to live with that animal for the rest of your life. Think about that. You're 7 days into this, you're feeling rotten, beat up, sore, tired, you're hungry. We're down to not a lot of food anymore, and what we have is pretty horrible. But this hunt's only going to last how many more days? 7 maybe? And if it does, for the rest of your life, you want to look at something because you couldn't do this for 7 more days and stick with your goal that was to get a really old ram. And I mean, he was right. And day 7 was the turning point in my hunting career. I realized that I am mentally tough enough to do this, and physically it's just discomfort. It hurts, and like I say, it doesn't feel nice, but it's not like I'm dying, not any more than all of us are. It's just I'm uncomfortable, and it was Rod Collins that that taught me that you can be as tough as you need to be. Every one of us has the capability of doing that. So, this back to your question, the secret, is there anything I can pass on? It's that you can do a lot more than you think you can do. When you think you're at your limit, you're just at the beginning of your limit, and how far you can push that is as human beings, we are incredible survivors, and we can push a lot further than what we think. And a lot of times we give up, which is basically the end for us. But you don't have to give up. You can do this. Anybody can do it. They can fight through it. And I'm sorry I've taken so long to answer this, but it's, we all have the ability to push so far beyond what we think we're capable of. And if this little long diatribe here convinces one person to go try and be greater than they are presently, then it worked. Hopefully it convinced 10 people or 20 or 100.
Oh yeah, and in your experience is that, that's where that a question like that, anybody can answer it, but taking the time to tell a story and really give us some insight into what makes you, like you said, I think that's it speaks very loud to many people, because one thing that a lot of people know is all they can do is be the best version of themselves that they can be. And if at that breaking point they can just convince themselves to trust in themselves and push forward a little more, then they can achieve things, like a Jim Shockey or like some of the other great hunters out there. I think it's a great story, Jim.
You betcha, and they can do better than a Jim Shockey or the other great hunters. I mean, that's the whole beauty of this. There's young kids coming up nowadays that, they're starting with so much more knowledge than what I had, and I mean, arguably I've hunted as much as anybody on this planet at this point. So, but there's youngsters coming up that'll, I hope, eclipse any of my accomplishments and do it smarter and tell the story better. Just all the way around better. If anything, I've maybe plowed a path that they can follow to this point, but they'll make new pathways beyond wherever I've gone, and I'm happy to have bulled the way forward for them. But and I'm sure all the other hunters that are done what I've done, or international hunters, even local hunters that are just really dedicated local hunters. They've maybe walked the pathways up to now, but these youngsters nowadays coming up are going to take those paths a lot further, I believe. I'm really positive on the hunting future.
Oh yeah, it's a bright future.
And this actually touches on the last thing Bran sent to me, which was, he said, you believe in doing things because they are hard, and that the greater the challenge, the greater the accomplishment, which is a pretty cool life philosophy. He says you stick to really closely.
Yeah, that's. I believe we had that conversation up on in the Himalayas in Nepal, where I was trying to explain to Bramlin, and Corey Knowlton was along, and Matty Gibson was another cameraman, and we were on the Dhaulagiri Massif looking for Himalayan blue sheep and Himalayan tar and muntjac, Chinese muntjac, and Dhaulagiri is one of the 8,000 meter peaks, one of the 14 8,000 meter peaks. So and oxygen was in short supply. Matty was suffering from high altitude sickness, and I was explaining to them, that deprivation is what makes accomplishment mean anything. If you can take a helicopter right up there and land and shoot your Himalayan blue sheep, well, yeah, you got the sheep, but that's only the goal. You didn't. There's no accomplishment in that, and because you've taken away all the challenges. So the more you can challenge yourself, then absolutely the greater the accomplishment when you attain your goal. And I mean, along with that is self-worth and pride and confidence and a whole bunch of honorable virtues that they develop because of that, because you challenge yourself. You didn't take the easy way, you took the hard way. And a lot of times, when we take the high road or the low road, it's the same thing. It's the same thing. It's a lot easier to steal than it is to work for something. So most of us in this world, thank goodness, tend to take the high road and want to take the high road. And that's the same thing as want to do the more challenging thing to do it right, so that when they finally meet their maker, they can look back and say, I did my best and I accomplished what I could accomplish, and I didn't take the easy road every single time. And like I say, you end up confident, self-confident when you challenge yourself. I mean, I love a challenge. I don't care what it is. If it's, Louise always shakes her head, and if it's a ping pong tournament in a all-inclusive resort in Mexico, I'm still going to go 100% all out to win that ping pong tournament. I love the challenge, and to make it even better, I'll use a crappy paddle with hopefully one hand behind my back and try not to curve the ball if that's what just something to make it more challenging. But I also don't like losing, so I will throw in a curveball once in a while on the ping pong table if that's what it takes. But yeah, no, challenge is vital to my life and is directly proportional to the accomplishment in the end.
That reminds me a lot of probably my favorite quote, and it's from Yvon Chouinard, and he was talking about mountaineering and climbing, and he said, if you compromise the process, you'll be an asshole when you start out and an asshole when you get back.
Well, I mean, that's he basically is saying the same thing,
Yeah.
except he's casting judgment on the people that do compromise. And it's not for everybody. I'm sure he, as a mountaineer, he wants to do it as close to the traditional ways that like Bonatti climbing. I mean, he was the greatest climber of all. So they, because he did it traditionally with old ropes, and he wasn't using expanders. He was doing it solo. I mean, those guys, of his level, my goodness sakes. So I'm sure this is what your fellow, what was his name? Yvon
Chouinard. He do you know who Royal Robbins is? Or any of the guys? They were the first guys to climb Half Dome and El Cap, or at least.
Oh, you're talking. Oh, okay. You're talking like serious rock guys here.
Yeah, he also did mountaineering, like Everest and that sort of stuff too. But that was what they're really known for. And he's the founder and owner of Patagonia Clothing.
Oh, okay. Yeah, really cool. I mean, obviously successful, and his philosophy on life obviously carried him in beyond his mountaineering and beyond his rock wall climbing into business. And it does. The same virtues hold true and values. So yeah, that's cool. I'll look him up and find out what he's all about. I'm a big mountaineering fan. If I would have gone into anything outside of hunting, it would have been mountaineering, except I would probably be dead because getting down wasn't always imperative. As Ed Beester says, getting to the top is optional, getting down is mandatory. And to me, I would have pushed it. I would have pushed it always. I know I would have, and so probably better I'm doing hunting, not mountaineering.
Are there any trips like that you look to maybe one day do?
Yeah, I'm sure I could climb Everest. I just try to get to where I'm too old, where I just say no, you can't anymore. I always thought I could do a double backflip off a diving board and a backflip just standing on the ground, and I never got those done. I got too old to try those, so I'm just waiting for the point where I say, no, okay, done. You can't get to the top of Everest anymore. But yeah, that would be. I'd love to do that. I mean, that would be cool. It's not a technical climb. It's mental and I believe I could do that. But that would be mountaineering. That would probably be it. Even because I just am beyond the stage in my life where I can really become an accomplished technical climber, and I'm a little big for it anyway. But I would have loved to have climbed some of those peaks. I see them. I mean, I'll be going by Nanga Parbat here in a month and a half or so in Pakistan, and to see that mountain, I just look at it and go, wow. Annapurna, I've gone right by that. I'd love to give that a shot, but I know it's outside of my technical ability and always will be in this lifetime. But maybe next lifetime, who knows? I'll probably come back as a white-tailed deer, though. Some evil joke on me. So.
If you do enjoy that stuff, there's a film that came out fairly recently called Meru.
Yeah, I just watched it. Yeah.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, I know. Oh, of course. Yeah. You think I would watch that? Like I say, I'm a fan of that stuff. So.
I didn't know. I'm learning.
Conrad Anker. I mean, I followed his career from the beginning. And Renaud. I mean, what was the other one they just tried to climb in Borneo, or where was it? Borneo. I think they tried to climb that mountain. They failed. On that one. That was, but they didn't have Conrad Anker there to support them. I mean, Jimmy Chin. Goodness sakes, who anyone knowing mountaineering, how can you not know about him? So I was all over that mountain. Actually, the original version, I thought, I didn't see it, but I heard it was better. The one that played at Sundance or the film festival 3 years ago.
Yeah.
To me, they made it more Hollywood now, or not more Hollywood. They made it.
They added filler. They added
filler.
I saw both versions, and the one thing about the second one I actually saw in a theater, and to see those shots where, it actually reminded me a little bit of your trip to the Himalayas and the hunts you do on Uncharted. It's that kind of big cinematic feel that I love.
They're awesome guys. I mean, Jimmy Chin there and Renaud, they're great videographers. So obviously, I would put my Matt Zanil up against either one of those guys any day of the week, and by any compare, I would suspect Matt would come out on top. He's tough, and you know what? You fall off a cliff at 14,000 feet, or you fall off a cliff at 29,000 feet on Everest. You're still dead. So it doesn't matter where you're filming or where you're climbing. It's once you're in the mountains. Every step matters. Every step counts. They've got more friends that are dead from mountaineering, but I have just as many friends that are dead from hunting, and that's generally airplanes, crossing rivers, hypothermia. I mean, you name it. It's still a factor in hunting when you're at those extreme edges of the hunting experience.
Well, Jim, I appreciate the time tonight. It's been a great conversation. You've always been someone we've wanted to have on, and like I said, that we appreciate you taking the time to join us tonight.
No, it's my pleasure, and I apologize for the first 15 minutes. That was my fault, and like I say, technical difficulties. But we made it, and you guys didn't even ask me any hard questions. Next time you got to come up with something a little more difficult.
I'm gonna have to. This has been the fastest hour of my life.
You have to dig deeper. The modeling underwear. I mean, it was pretty good. I give you some credit for that, digging that up. But you got to get deeper next time, and like I say, throw some hardballs at me.
The key is next time I'll have to reach out to Bran, to reach out to your wife, to say,
hey, wait a minute, that'll be way too hard to answer. Probably Eva could provide you with a bunch of questions, I'm sure.
I mean, we have to have a show where you can actually answer our questions, though.
Yeah, well, that's true. I would answer somehow, but yeah, ask Evie next time. Brand's too nice, but Evie, yeah, she would have some good ones.
She'll
But yeah,
go
no,
for the
I'm
jugular?
happy. Oh yeah, that's Eva. Eva, absolutely. Brand's nice like Louise, my wife, and Eva's more like me. So there's that's. If they're both listening, they're probably both gagging in their mouths. But no, get Evie to ask the questions next time. She'll give some real tough ones. But yeah, as long as you'll have me back on, I'll be happy to come back on.
Absolutely.
Geez, I don't even think we need to answer that question, Jim.
Yeah. No, we
Okay.
You have a
appreciate it.
standing invitation to the Natural Born Hunter podcast.
Yes.
Perfect. Anytime you can catch me in North America, I'll be happy to do it.
No, you know
Awesome.
what? We might have to just leave North America sometime. Catch you somewhere else.
Yeah, well, now with communications, you can do this just about anywhere around the world. So
I'm
yeah,
thinking mountainside. You could do one mountainside somewhere.
yeah, that'd be cool. I guarantee I'll be there.
And Jim,
All
if
right.
you ever need to get 20% off Mountain Ops supplements, you can use the coupon code NBH20 on all of your orders and get 20% off.
Hey, beautiful. Thanks.
Yeah.
Did we just share that with everybody in the world just now?
Yes, we did. I could probably make a call if you really wanted to get you some for free, but there
Yeah,
may be people who want just 20% off. They're cool with that, and they can use the coupon code MBH20 as they are a fine sponsor of this show.
perfect. Sounds great. Appreciate it.
Yes.
All
Well,
right, Jim.
thank you very much for coming on, Jim. I really appreciate you. We both really appreciate you taking the time out of your schedule.
Happy to do it.
Most interesting man in the world, Jim Shockey, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh, huge compliment. Appreciate it.
You have a great night.
All right.
You
Thanks,
betcha.
Jim.
You too. You bet. Bye-bye.
You there?
Yeah.